Deprivation of liberty safeguards. What you should know. The Human Rights Convention says that every person has the right to liberty. Liberty means being free to do the things you want to do and live where you want to live. Deprivation of liberty means to take someone's freedom away.
Why should I know about this?
A few years ago, someone with a learning disability was taken to a mental health hospital because of the way he was behaving. His carers said he should come home, but the hospital said he should stay. He wasn't made to stay under the Mental Health Act, but was kept in hospital because staff believed it was in his best interests. He could not talk, but he was clearly unhappy, so this went to court. This case was called the Bournewood case. Because of this case, new rules were made to protect people who may need to be deprived of their liberty in hospitals or in care homes in their best interests and to keep them safe. The new rules have been put into the Mental Capacity Act 2005. This guide is about those rules. They are called the Deprivation of Liberty Safeguards. Safeguards are rules to keep you safe. If your liberty is taken away, the safeguards make sure that that is the right thing to do for you. They also make sure that your liberty is not taken away for longer than is needed.
How do you know if someone's liberty is being taken away?
There are many ways that someone's liberty can be taken away in a hospital or care home. Some of the things we look out for. Are staff making all the decisions for someone? Is someone being made to stay somewhere and not allowed to leave? Are carers not being allowed to take someone home? Is someone not allowed to see friends or family when they want? But every person's case is different.
When is it okay to deprive someone of their liberty?
The law says that it is only okay for 3 reasons. The first reason is
that it's in someone's best interests.
This means depriving you of your liberty is the best thing to do for you. The second reason is
to stop you getting hurt.
The third reason is
that it's the best thing to do to stop things from getting bad.
When can a hospital or a care home deprive someone of their liberty?
Taking someone's liberty away is so serious that the law says that
every effort must be made to avoid deprivation of liberty.
This means that they should only take someone's liberty away if it is the only way they can help them. The law also says that
because that person cannot make their own decisions and cannot give their permission, they have to ask permission from someone else.
Who can give permission for a hospital or a care home to do this?
Only primary care trusts or PCTs, local councils and local health boards can give permission. In Wales, Welsh ministers can also give permission. This permission is called authorisation.
When will authorisation be given?
First, the hospital or care home must make sure that the person lacks capacity and cannot give permission. Lacking capacity means that someone cannot make a certain decision at that time. They must also make sure the person has a mental disorder. Mental disorders include a learning disability. It does not include mental health problems because of alcohol or drugs. Health and social care services must do everything they can before deciding that this is the best thing to do. Deprivation of liberty is the very last thing they should think about doing. Take Adam's story.
My name is Adam. I am 35 years old. I have a learning disability, and I live with my parents.
Adam is generally calm and easy to get on with.
But sometimes I can get upset if I'm in a strange place, or there are too many people around me.
When his parents went away on holiday, Adam got to be home on his own. A paid carer came in to help out while they were away. While she was there, Adam fell. The carer was worried that he might have broken his arm, so she took him to A&E. They decided to X-ray Adam's arm. But because he was in a strange place and was in a lot of pain, Adam got very upset. Staff had to keep him still while they did the X-ray. Luckily, his carer was in the room and took him outside to calm down. While Adam was outside, the doctor in charge of A&E thought about how to treat Adam's injury.
If Adam becomes upset again when he comes back, I might have to make him stay in hospital to treat him. Adam has a learning disability, which the law says is a mental disorder. But can Adam give his permission to stay in hospital?
The doctor thought he should find out more about Adam before he took the next step, which is asking the PCT for permission to make Adam stay in hospital. He gets the number for Adam's parents from his carer and rings them up. They tell him that Adam cannot give permission because he would not understand what the hospital wants to do. So, Adam lacks capacity and he cannot give permission. But they also tell him that
he gets really upset when there are lots of people about, but all he needs is a little bit of peace and quiet, and his carer with him, and he'll calm right down.
The doctor is still not sure, but he must try what they say before deciding to take Adam's liberty away. The law says that staff must do as much as they can to avoid taking someone's liberty away. The doctor gives him some medicine to stop the pain and sees that Adam does not need to stay in hospital at all. The doctor decides that
I think it's in Adam's best interests to go home with his carer.
in the next section, we'll look at authorizations.
When can a hospital or a care home ask for authorization?
Authorization is permission. Before a hospital or care home asks for authorization, they must make sure that taking away someone's liberty is the best thing for them. Take Mrs. Kumar's story.
My name is Mrs. Kumar. I am 84 years old and I live in Sunnydale Care Home.
Mrs. Kumar has dementia. This is a mental disorder. This means she sometimes forgets where she is and what she is doing. Lately, her dementia has got worse. It's become bad enough that staff feel that they will need to watch over her nearly all the time, or she might hurt herself. If she wants to go out, a staff member will have to go with her to make sure she's okay, like crossing the road safely, or remembering where she's going. By doing this, they would be stopping Mrs. Kumar from having any freedom. They would be taking away her liberty. They need Mrs. Kumar's permission before they can do this. They try to talk to Mrs. Kumar about what they are doing, but she does not understand what they are asking her about. The staff decide that they will need to ask for authorization from the local council. The manager of the care home fills out a form and sends it to the local council. Before the council can give authorization, it must do 6 different checks to make sure that this is the right thing to do. all 6 checks have to agree for authorization to be given. In the next section, we'll find out about the 6 checks. Once the council agrees to do the checks, they must be done within 21 days. This is so that Mrs. Kumar can get the help she needs as soon as possible.
Who will do the checks?
There must be at least 2 different people doing the checks. They have to know what they are doing and have the right skills. They need to be able to talk with Mrs. Kumar. They cannot be from Mrs. Kumar's family. They cannot be paid by the care home or have anything to do with the care home. The person who does the best interests check must be independent. They cannot be someone who is caring or supporting Mrs. Kumar. They must be covered in case anything goes wrong. In the next section, we will look at Mrs. Kumar's 6 checks. One of the checks is to see if Mrs. Kumar has a mental disorder, and another is to see if depriving her of her liberty is in her best interests. These checks must be done by 2 different people. The council has asked Dr. Chandra and Miss Sim to do Mrs. Kumar's checks. Dr. Chandra will do the mental health check and Miss Sim will do the best interests check. Remember, all 6 checks must agree for authorization to be given.
1. Is Mrs. Kumar old enough?
This is really just to make sure that Mrs. Kumar is not under 18 years old. So, yes, Mrs. Kumar is old enough.
2. Are there earlier decisions that could stop the authorization?
This could be another decision made by a lasting power of attorney, a deputy from the Court of Protection, or an advance decision. There is more information about these in our booklet called the Mental Capacity Act.
3. Can Mrs. Kumar make her own decisions?
The answer must be no for authorization to be given. Miss Sim knows a lot about Mrs. Kumar's illness. She knows that just because she's sick, it does not mean she does not understand. After talking to her, Miss Sim decides that Mrs. Kumar cannot make this decision about her care.
4. Does Mrs. Kumar have a mental disorder?
The law says that only a doctor who is expert in mental health can do this check. Dr. Chandra is, and decides that Mrs. Kumar does have a mental disorder.
5. Which law needs to be used?
Miss Sim and Dr. Chandra both agree that Mrs. Kumar's case comes under the Mental Capacity Act.
6. Is it in Mrs. Kumar's best interests?
This check actually does 3 things. First, it looks at what the care home plans to do. Does it take away Mrs. Kumar's liberty? Second, if the answer is yes, Miss Sim must look to see whether this is the right thing to do for Mrs. Kumar. To do this, she will talk to Mrs. Kumar's carers as well as her friends and family. She talks to Meena, Mrs. Kumar's granddaughter, who is very close to Mrs. Kumar. Third, she will look at all the choices the care home has made to help Mrs. Kumar. She must make sure that taking away Mrs. Kumar's liberty is the best thing the care home could do to help her. All the checks agree that what the care home wants to do is best for Mrs. Kumar.
What happens now?
The local council must get a representative for Mrs. Kumar. A representative speaks up for someone who has had their liberty taken away. Remember, someone who has had their liberty taken away cannot make some important decisions themselves. The law says that this person must,
Be over 18 years old. Be able to keep in touch with Mrs. Kumar. Be well enough to do the job. Agree to do the job for Mrs. Kumar. This person cannot work for the care home or the council. Mrs. Kumar can choose her own representative if she wants to, and she's able to. If she can't or does not want to, the local council will choose someone for her.
Mrs. Kumar says she wants her granddaughter, Meena, to be her representative. In the next section, we will talk about Meena's job.
My name is Meena, and I speak for my grandmother, Mrs. Kumar. My job is to keep in touch with my grandmother and support her while her liberty is being deprived.
This is a very important job. She will be making decisions for Mrs. Kumar when she cannot make them herself.
I can say I don't agree with authorisation if I think there is a better way to help my grandmother.
If Mrs. Kumar wants to stop the authorisation, Meena can help her ask the Court of Protection for help. The care home must make sure that Meena understands what is being done for her grandmother. They must also tell Meena any plans they have to change what is happening to Mrs. Kumar. Meena can also ask for a review of Mrs. Kumar's case at any time.
If I think my grandmother is better and does not need to have her liberty taken away, I can ask the council to look at the authorisation again.
But the council and care home will also make sure that Meena is doing her job properly. If they think that she's not keeping in touch with Mrs. Kumar enough, or that she's not acting in Mrs. Kumar's best interests, they can get someone else to do the job. Later on, we will look at what happens when Mrs. Kumar gets better. Now, though, let's look at an urgent authorisation and what happened to Richard.
So what is an urgent authorisation?
There are two types of authorisations. The first is a standard authorisation, which we saw in Mrs. Kumar's story. The second type is called an urgent authorisation. It can only be given when
a hospital or care home believes that they must act now to keep someone safe, but they must apply for a standard authorisation at the same time.
Take Richard's story.
My name is Richard. I was in a car accident and I have a brain injury.
Richard is in a care home because his brain injury had become worse. He has got better, but not enough to go home and carry on living on his own.
But I want to go home. I can take care of myself.
But Richard keeps forgetting what he's doing. He takes his clothes off a lot and wanders around the home naked. The care home has made a care plan with Richard to give him as much freedom as they can. But he thinks they want to lock him up and keeps trying to run away. This means the care home has to put even more controls on Richard to keep him safe. The care home manager is worried that this means they are depriving Richard of his liberty. The care home manager decides to apply for authorisation. But an authorisation could take a month before it is given, and Richard tries to run away every day. The care home manager has looked at all the things he can do to keep Richard safe and decides that these controls are the best he can do for Richard. The law says
he can give himself urgent authorization, but he must apply to the council for standard authorization at the same time. The council must now ask assessors to do the 6 checks within 7 days. The council must make sure all 6 checks agree before they can deprive Richard of his liberty.
The care home manager tells the council that this is what he is doing, and they send a best interests assessor to see him. An assessor is somebody who does a check. Because Richard does not have close friends or family to help him, the council asks an independent mental capacity advocate, or IMCA, to support Richard. Charlie is Richard's IMCA. Charlie's job is to make sure Richard's rights are kept safe. Charlie talks to Richard and finds out as much as he can about him. Charlie also talks to all the people doing Richard's checks. Charlie must look at whether the care home was right to do an urgent authorization. If he disagrees, he can go to the Court of Protection for Richard and ask for it to be stopped. The Court of Protection will decide what is best for Richard. After talking to everyone, Charlie is not sure that the care home's plans are good for Richard. After talking with Charlie and everyone involved in Richard's care, Miss Sim thinks there are other ways to keep Richard safe. She tells the council that they should not give authorization to the care home manager. In the next section, we will look at what happened when Mrs. Kumar got better. It's now 3 months after authorization has been given for Mrs. Kumar to be deprived of her liberty. She is starting to get better. The medicine has made a difference, and she can make more of her own decisions. Mrs. Kumar thinks that the staff do not need to watch over her as much anymore. The authorization has 3 months left, and staff think they should keep watch at least until then. Mrs. Kumar is helped by Meena to ask for a review from the council. She has written a clear letter. It shows that she understands what is happening. The council asks Miss Sim to do a review.
What happens at a review?
Miss Sim will look to see what checks need to be done again. She decides that the mental capacity check needs to be done again. If the check shows that Mrs. Kumar can make her own decisions, the authorization will stop straight away. The council must write to the home, Mrs. Kumar, and Meena to tell them authorization has stopped. Dr. Chandra talks to Mrs. Kumar and Meena. He decides that Mrs. Kumar does understand what is happening and can make her own decisions. The authorization for deprivation of liberty for Mrs. Kumar is stopped. In the next section, we will look at what you should do if you think someone is being deprived of their liberty against the rules.
How can I tell if someone has their liberty taken away? What should I do about it?
Miss Chan asked herself these questions when she went to visit her friend, Mrs. Baker, in Parkview Care Home. Miss Chan and Mrs. Baker have been friends for a long time. She visits her every month. They go for walks and sometimes play games. She usually spends the whole day with Mrs. Baker. One day, a care worker at the home tells Miss Chan that she can only stay for an hour. Miss Chan is surprised and asks Mrs. Baker what's going on.
Oh, I had a bit of a funny turn the other day, and I shouted at some of the staff. I think I broke a cup as well. I'm all right now, but they think I'm going to go off on one again.
After her visit, Miss Chan is worried that her friend is being deprived of her liberty. She decides to visit again the next week. This time, the care home says that Mrs. Baker has been given some medicine to calm her down. She had been shouting and throwing things around. The staff thought it would be best to give her some medicine to stop her from being hurt. Miss Chan asks if Mrs. Baker has had a mental health check. The staff say that they have asked a doctor to see Mrs. Baker soon. Miss Chan is really worried now. She writes a letter to the manager of the care home about her worries for Mrs. Baker. Miss Chan knows that the care home manager should answer quickly. she expects to get a call from the care home manager to talk about what is happening with Mrs. Baker. But 2 days pass and she does not hear anything. She goes back to see Mrs. Baker. Again, she is told that she can only see her for an hour. She asks Mrs. Baker if she's okay with this.
Not really. I don't know what they think I'm going to do.
Mrs. Baker is clearly unhappy. Miss Chan decides to write to the local council. When the council gets Miss Chan's letter, they ask Miss Sim to check whether Mrs. Baker is being deprived of her liberty. The council writes to Miss Chan, Mrs. Baker, and the manager of the care home to say that this is happening. Miss Sim will check whether Mrs. Baker has had her liberty taken away. If she finds that Mrs. Baker has been deprived of her liberty, the care home must stop at once, as they do not have permission. They will need to ask for authorization, and all 6 checks will have to be done.
What if an authorization has been given, but Miss Chan does not agree with it?
Miss Chan can ask an IMCA to help Mrs. Baker. The Court of Protection can stop the authorization. This is the end of the Guide to Deprivation of Liberty Safeguards. All the names in this guide are not real, including the names of the care homes. Thank you for watching.